Hi. So, here's another 3-pig story. This one is called The 3 Little Javelinas. A javelina is a little wild hairy pig that lives down in the desert in Southwest, like Texas and parts of Mexico and New Mexico and Arizona, kind of in that area. The 3 Little Javelinas by Susan Lowell, and the pictures are by Jim Harris. Let's see what this story is about. These have all been quite different, haven't they? Once upon a time, way out in the desert, there were 3 little javelinas. Javelinas are wild, hairy, southwestern cousins of pigs. Their heads were hairy, their backs were hairy, and their bony legs, all the way down to their hard little hooves, were very hairy. But their snouts were soft and pink, and one day the 3 little javelinas trotted away to seek their fortunes. In this hot, dry land, the sky was almost always blue. Steep purple mountains looked down on the desert where the cactus forest grew. Soon the little javelinas came to a spot where the path divided, and each one went a different way. The first little javelina wandered lazily along. He didn't see the dust storm whirling across the desert until it caught him. The whirlwind blew away and left the first little javelina sitting on a heap of tumbleweeds. Brushing himself off, he said, "I'll build a house with them." And in no time at all, he did. If you've ever been to Eastern Washington, in our state, there's tumbleweeds over there. Then along came a coyote. So do you guys know what it is when I say coyote, or do I need to say coyote? I'll try to remember to say coyote. But where I lived when I was growing up and learning how to talk, they were called coyotes. Little bit of a different language, not very different. Canadian and American are very similar, but they've got some words that are different, like coyote or coyote. Okay, along came a coyote. He ran through the desert so quickly and so quietly he was almost invisible. In fact, this was only one of Coyote's many magical tricks. He laughed when he saw the tumbleweed house and he smelled the javelina inside. A tender, juicy piggy, he thought. Coyote was tired of eating mice and rabbits. So we don't even have a wolf in this story. We have a coyote. He called out sweetly, little pig, let me come in." "Not by the hair of my chinny chin chin," shouted the first javelina, who had a lot of hair on his chinny chin chin. "Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in," said Coyote. And he huffed and he puffed and he blew the little tumbleweed house away. But in all of the hullabaloo, the first little javelina escaped and went looking for his brother and sister. Coyote, who was very sneaky, tiptoed along behind. The second little javelina walked for miles along giant cactus plants called saguaros. They held their ripe red fruit very high in the sky, but they made almost no shade, and the little javelina grew hot. Then he came upon a Native American woman who was gathering sticks from inside a dried-up cactus. She planned to use these long sticks called saguaro ribs to knock down the sweet cactus fruit. The second little javelina said, "Please, may I have some sticks to build a house?" "How?" she said, which means yes in the language of the desert people. When he was finished building the house, he lay down in the shade, and then his brother arrived, panting from the heat, and the second little javelina moved over and made a place for him. They hung a sign that said, "Do not disturb." They were having a nice nap. Pretty soon, Coyote found the saguaro rib house. He used his magic to make his voice sound just like another javelina's. Little pig, let me come in," he called. But the little javelinas were suspicious. The second one cried, "No, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin." "Bah," said Coyote, "I'm not going to eat your hair." Then Coyote smiled, showing all his sharp teeth. "I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in." So he huffed and he puffed, and all the saguaro ribs came tumbling down. But the two little javelinas escaped into the desert. Still not discouraged, Coyote followed. Sometimes his magic did fail, but then he usually came up with another trick. The third little javelina trotted along through beautiful palo verde trees with green trunks and yellow flowers. She saw a snake gliding by, smooth as oil. A hawk floated round and round above her. Then she came to a place where a man was making adobe bricks from mud and straw. The bricks lay on the ground, baking in the hot sun. The third little javelina thought for a moment and said, "May I please have a few adobes to build a house?" "Sí," answered the man, which means yes in Spanish, the bricklayer's language. So the third javelina built herself a solid little adobe house, cool in summer and warm in winter. When her brothers found her, she welcomed them in and locked the door behind them. Coyote followed their trail. We're ending up with all three pigs in the same place, and here comes Coyote. Little pig, let me come in," he called. The three little javelinas looked out the window. This time Coyote pretended to be very old and weak with no teeth and a sore paw, but they were not fooled. "No, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin," called back the third little javelina. "Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in," said Coyote. He grinned, thinking of the wild pig dinner to come. "Just try it," shouted the third little javelina. So Coyote huffed and puffed, but the adobe bricks did not budge. Again Coyote tried, "I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in." The three little javelinas covered their hairy ears, but nothing happened. The javelinas peeked out the window. The tip of Coyote's raggedy tail whisked right past their noses. He was climbing upon the tin roof. Next, Coyote used his magic to make himself very skinny. "The stovepipe!" gasped the third little javelina. Quickly she lighted a fire inside her wood stove. "What a feast it will be," Coyote thought to himself. He squeezed into the stovepipe. "I think I'll eat them with red-hot chili sauce." Whoosh! Sizzle! What's going to happen to Coyote? Then the three little javelinas heard an amazing noise. It was not a bark, it was not a cackle, it was not a howl, it was not a scream. It was all those sounds together. Away ran a puff of smoke shaped like a coyote. You can hear them sometimes yelling like that around here. The three little javelinas lived happily ever after in their adobe house. And if you ever hear Coyote's voice way out in the desert at night, well, you know what he's remembering. The end. So, that's another different story, isn't it? You'll have to listen to all the stories and see which one you think is actually the closest to real. Then you can tell me which one you think. I'll see you next time.